Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, depending where you're watching from, or whether you're watching this live or you're watching the recorded webinar. My name is Trevor Doornbos. I work for Aprika Business Solutions, the creators and owners of Mission Control Project Management, and I'll be your host for the next 40 to 45 minutes. I'll be going through the whys of Mission Control, where it came from, who uses it, and we'll go through a solution walkthrough. My history working deep in the Salesforce ecosystem is around 9 years, being an end user for much longer than that, and 3 years at Aprika. Why Mission Control? Well, number one of the key reasons our customers turn to Mission Control because it's built natively on Salesforce. So you're leveraging that key Salesforce platform capability connected at the platform or API layer for the more technical. And Mission Control works out of the box. What does that mean? That means when you download it from Salesforce App Exchange, you get the whole application. There's no tiers to cause you tears. You're getting access to the full application and any new features that come in our 3 releases a year. And to configure it, you're actually inside Salesforce. So page layouts, adding custom fields, managing permission sets, adding your own automation through flows, validation rules, you're leveraging Salesforce configuration for that. As far as downloading it from App Exchange, the quick start guide, the implementation guide, the user guide, the knowledge base, online support and live chat, all that's available to you when you're testing out and when you're using Mission Control. And that user support is across our teams in Australia and the United States. So you've got pretty close to follow the sun support. What are the key values that our customers are getting from Mission Control? Well, Klein Consulting Partners interviewed a number of Mission Control customers to bring the figures in the business and economic impact report last year. And you can download that from our website at aprika.com, and some amazing responses and feedback there. The evolution of Mission Control, it actually started as an internal tool for our co-founders, Chris and Colin, who needed a way to manage their implementation projects. They were a Salesforce systems integrator. That's how they started their journey at Aprika. And then in 2012, that turned into an application on Salesforce App Exchange. So 11 years on, it's grown from quite a simple project management solution into a full-fledged professional services automation solution. I'll cover off in the next few slides what the impact of that is. And to date, we've managed over 500,000 projects, 8 to 10 million time logs. We're used all across the world. So it's not just for Australia. It's not just for certain countries. We've got global customers varying in industry and size. And you'd think perhaps that if it was a project management solution, it's really just for consulting companies, consulting partners. And that couldn't be further from the truth, because many companies and many industries have a need to manage projects, to manage resources. And if you look at that across some of our key verticals and customers, you'll see everyone from pharmaceuticals to travel to shopping centers, insurance, science and research, you name it. We've got customers across all those industries. And what's in Mission Control? What makes it more than just a project management solution? Well, it's that deep dive into resource management is one of those aspects, being able to capture to the depth that you need to. All the features are there, you don't need to use them all. And being able to look at your resources, your people, your assets, and being able to figure out availability and getting people managed, as it were, right down to tracking holiday management. When are people on holiday? When they're sick? When are they available to work? To create a project, and I'll show you a couple of methods of that. There's a number of ways to do that in Mission Control, and it's extremely flexible. And then the actual management of the project, probably one of the core differentiators of Mission Control built on Salesforce, is flexibility between the views you have of the project. You choose whether you prefer to look at the Gantt chart, the Kanban view on the whiteboard, the list view in the action pad, or in a typical sort of work breakdown structure view. From tracking time and expenses, there's multiple ways to track time, whether you need to be that granular on as you go, whether you do that at the end of day, end of the week. And financials, being able to actually carry through. And this is where that whole PSA aspect, professional services automation aspect, comes in, is being able to take the resources they're delivering on the projects right through to the billing and have that jump off point ready to go into your finance system, into your general ledger. We'll sort of talk to some of those aspects. If you've got a software development part of your company, and much as we use Mission Control internally, all our developers are internal staff, and they use Mission Control to manage the release cycle of Mission Control, capturing requirements, user stories, and managing those agile sprints. Collaboration, of course, we leverage what's on Salesforce with Chatter, and we'll cover a couple of the other aspects. And we'll look at some of those productivity tools. So there is a Q&A section you'll find hopefully on the webinar. So if you've got any questions, you go through, or you can use the chat. Happy to answer questions as we go if you need me to deep dive a bit more. It will be a bit of a whistle-stop tour. And what I'm going to try and do is look at this aspect from three different persona point of view. Myself as a project manager, Alana as a team member, and then Bethany perhaps as a resource manager or someone on the executive team who wants to get a high-level view of how the business is running. So let's jump in to Mission Control. So what you should see on my screen now, I've got a number of tabs here that I'm going to use to walk through the solution overview. Top left, I'm in a Salesforce org or database or instance. I can see the app launcher at the top left, Salesforce app launcher, and I've got access to Mission Control. It's an application that's installed into Salesforce. I've also got Mission Control Community, Salesforce, Sales Cloud. So all the different apps that are available, and we've configured the view to the way that I want to manage it. And we'll see how that could look for a team member view. You might start your journey in Mission Control on the console, and the console is a gathering of wizards. I'm not the arcane type, more the technical type to make your life a lot easier. I want to create a project, which we'll do shortly. I want to clone a project. I want to look at all the templates I've created, maybe just create a project from that to reuse. Much as when I was an engagement manager using Microsoft Project, I hardly ever built any from scratch. I'd find one that worked before and use that, clone it, replicate it. Your roles in Mission Control, they can be either your people delivering, they could be assets such as equipment, rooms. They can even be built on Salesforce contact records. So you want to include your customers on the project as a stakeholder, but they don't necessarily log in. You can group those roles into teams, whether it be by geography, capability. You can build out a skills library and assign skills to people. So when you're looking for people, we will soon be able to track all that. There's a lot more in here. I'm not going to go through everything, but certainly you can track holidays, risks and issues. There's a meeting manager, which is probably another session. And when we go into the progress pad, this is how we actually progress things with Mission Control. And we don't have to go through the wizards, but there's a number of ways to do that. The management pad is where you might want to deep dive, and we'll deep dive into a project to go on. And then your admin, this is where they set the global settings for Mission Control. So we can actually walk through that. And one of the great settings in here is if you haven't actually started on Mission Control yet, and you'd like to download Mission Control from App Exchange, there's a great thing here in the control pad called Create Sample Data. So you can start playing in a sandbox org. So let's create a project. Our project minimum requirement is, we'll just call this my project, is a name and one milestone. So we'll call this design. I'm going to say it's $3,000 budget. I don't need a budget. All I really need is project name and my milestone. And just to keep things easier, what I might do is actually, let's call this brief. I'm going to call this one design build, and we're going to call this one train. And I'm figuring this one's going to take about $4,000. This one's going to take about $3,000. So I'm going to set my project budget while I'm here. I don't have to, but it just rounds things out nicely. So maybe not $100,000. So that's how hard it is to create a project in Mission Control. Now, when I hit launch project, my view as an admin, I've got absolutely everything switched on. So I have a preference. I've got a milestone progress ribbon. That's a page layout thing you can administer in Salesforce. I've added some fields at the top of the project that I care about in the project status area there. And my default is I come into the work breakdown structure. So I've got my 3 milestones. And what I probably need to do is create actions so I can start assigning people to those. Number of ways I can do that. I'm going to use the Create Actions menu. which is a nice way to get this all happening. And go, okay, let's create 3 actions. We'll start with the brief. We'll go with design and build, have a couple of that, and then we'll do one for train. No questions so far, that's good. We'll call this one requirements, call that design, call this one build test, call this one training. Again, you can put in minimal information. My project's going to be billable. You can capture billable and non-billable. Really useful if you're doing pre-sales as part of a project. You want to capture how much time people are spending, or even when people want to read documentation to catch up on things, maybe you want to allow for that when you're building out your project. Something you can do. We're going to set a requirements meeting, design and build. Let's go, okay, I'm going to say 8 hours. Let's put 16 for build and test. This can be a super quick project, obviously. And I want this to start today. So we'll start this today. I'm just going to say 1 working day. We'll start that one tomorrow. And then that gives us the 18th. I want that to run for 2 days. So they'll go to the 21st. And then I'll just give 1 day for that. Now I can assign this to real people. I scroll through and find my people. What I'm going to do, I'm actually going to build this out as a template. So this is going to be really useful for me. I've created some placeholder roles, a placeholder role for consultant, designer, developer. Now, when we talk about role costing and billing, you can have default rates for all of these. So I can actually use this to cost out my project as well. One last thing is I want to run this waterfall. So I'm just going to build my dependencies now. Say 2 follow to start from 1. Let's go the other way around. There you go. It's going to tell me if I get it wrong. It's very good at that. And that's about all we need. And anytime we want to come back and add an action, we can go back into create actions. Again, there's a number of ways to do that. As I look at my project now, I've built out my requirements. I've got my actions under design build, and the hours I've allocated are now rolling up to the milestone level. So that's kind of useful. Now, the way that I want to run my project, I'm actually doing milestone billing for this. So I'm just going to set up the billing for this quickly. I might just add myself as the project manager. I'll call this my project template. So we're going to turn this into a template. What else do I need? Okay, so I just need the billing type. When I'm looking at my estimates as well as my margin tracking, number of ways I can do that. I could actually do this by a standard rate, like a day rate. I could use a rate card I've created for a customer. I could do by the skill. So depending, you could have the same person doing design, then build, then training, and have 3 different charge rates. I'm going to do it by the role, which is based on the role record, whether it's the person or the placeholder role in this case. So it'll actually cost that all out for me. So not going to have any overtime, don't need a lot of these settings. I'm going to apply Australian goods and services tax. I'm going to put this as milestone billing, and I'll cover how that works. Payment terms, 7 days. And that's probably about all I need. A lot more settings in there if you want to use them, status report, all those sorts of things. I'm just going to tick all 3 boxes. So I'm going to click the template. I'm going to make sure my baseline dates are correct. I'm going to force financials recalculation. Okay, so what has that done? That's kind of helped me. So even though I haven't gone into too much depth, it's helped me with my costing in that the hours times the roles I've used, it's given me my estimated billing value. So I've actually got a bit of money left over. I could actually add more hours or have a hefty margin there. And it will track my P&L as I go through as well, which is basically the role charge rate less the cost rate. So great. Cost performance and schedule performance, we'll see what that means later on. It's tracking your cost and your schedule real time through your projects as they're running. One last thing I want to do, a little bit of nice little feature, is when I complete my milestones, I want to automatically create an invoice. So much as the create actions page, I've got the create milestones. I might just say, look, I'm going to manage all these. That's great. And hit save. So there we go. I've got my project. Now, with my project, I talked in the intro about different views and the capability. I might want to go to the action pad, which gives me a summary of all the actions, where they're up to once they've started. And I can see the actions and the individual hours allocated. So I can see how many hours allocated. I can see those placeholders, and we'll go through a bit more in depth. If I prefer a Kanban view, I can look at the whiteboard. I'm looking at this by milestone view. I can look at it by status, which is what we'll go through when we work through the project. And I can look at that from a Gantt chart view. So I'm not going in and out of the product. I'm just looking at different aspects of this. And then maybe as I'm tracking through my project, that actually I'd like design to start next week. So what I might do while I'm here, I don't even have to go out of the Gantt chart. I'm just going to move that. I probably want a bit more time between design and build and test. So we'll do follow to start plus 2 days on that too. And similarly with the training, might want to just allow them a bit of leeway. So very flexible, a lot you can actually do, very powerful. And there's my project. I'm ready to start assigning people. But what I did promise you is I was going to use this template. So let's go to an opportunity and let's leverage this template. So I'm in a Salesforce opportunity and I've got these fields which include my mission control automation. I'm going to use a method to take the whole template, and we'll just call that, here we go, my project template. We're going to say we're closing and starting the project today. And then all I need to do is tick that box and that will generate a project. If you want to automate this process at any stage, you could have a Salesforce flow, as I've done here. I've got a Salesforce flow that when I click closed one, it's going to tick that box for me. That's about as technical as that flow gets. That box is now ticked. When I hit refresh, this runs asynchronously in case you've got really big projects. And we can see that project's there. So other core value of mission control, because it's on the platform, it's connected. So this project's connected to the opportunity, it's connected to the account. I can capture all that information. If you're giving visibility to your account owners, your salespeople, they could actually see through mission control under the account without having to leave their view of the world. You can just include things such as the Gantt chart or other aspects of that. If I go into my project now, here's that project we just created. There's that project brief. There's got an alert. It's actually the 16th of August today. Anyone from North America, from the US, we're using day, month, year format. So I need to get this resource. I've got a placeholder consultant now. There's a number of ways I could do this. I could do it in the scheduler. I could use the reassignment wizard. I'm just going to get this one meeting scheduled super quickly. I've got a little icon over here, which is the resource assignment wizard. I could actually select the person I want quite easily, or let's use what it's designed for. So what I'm looking for is someone who's in Asia Pacific, who's also on the consulting team and has the skill of configuration. I'm going to look at this week, today for the next 2 weeks in case I can't see anyone for today. And it'll only bring back a subset of my team that meets that criteria. Really powerful. So straight away, I've got 2 people. It could be Mick or Alana. Mick's a bit more expensive, looked like he was a bit over resourced there. And I can see what that time, okay, well, I need to get this done because Alana's actually going on holiday. So if I want her to work on it, great. I can assign that. I could actually share this between 2 people so I can have contributors. The colored triangles, what do the colored triangles signify? I'm not sure I see any triangles, but maybe if you could expand on your question there, Brian, that'd be awesome. Okay, so I've found a resource, I've assigned Alana, and let's give that to her to have a look at. Sorry, I didn't understand the question, Brian, but feel free to clarify that. Happy to come back to this. So from my project, I can see Alana's actually assigned, it's planned. I can see she's got 8 hours and it needs to happen. And Alana can get an automated email. Oh, back on the Gantt chart. Okay, so on the Gantt chart, the colored triangles have a super quick look. Oh, this is an alert. So the red triangle here, that's an alert symbol. Oh, and the overview. Yeah, same thing. So I see that alert. This is because this is today. This should have started already. And if it was tomorrow, it would probably come with an amber warning. So just a little warning. You can build any additional automation, notification, validation that you really need. Okay, so we've assigned that requirements meeting to Alana, and you can send her an automated email to say you've been assigned to this. You can also give her a daily digest similar to this old example. She can see everything even before she logs in for the day, what she's got on, anything new, anything she's waiting on others, things that are running late. She's a manager, then any approval. So I'm going to log in as Alana, and let's have a look at her view of the world. Now, because I'm an admin, logging in as Alana, it's probably going to default to my last view. So I'm just going to go to her view of the world. What could it look like for Alana? And this is just an example of how it could fit. So she's also got access to the console, but only the progress pad. So she can actually, she could go straight to the timesheet and go, okay, what's on my schedule? What have I got? All right, there's that. Okay. Those are ACE demo. Oh, right. Yeah, that's the project. We call the ACE demo implementation. There's that requirements meeting. She's got 8-hour schedule, so it doesn't even have to work outside the timesheet if she doesn't want to on that schedule. So she knows exactly what's been happening. We've got an internal billable, non-billable project set up. So she's tracked time in here where she had some internal training sessions. So that's good for tracking billable and non-billable. And she's already got PTO. She's got annual leave booked for Thursday, Friday. So that's been shown as non-working days. So kind of useful for her knowing what's happening. She might prefer to go to the action pad that I showed earlier. So her view of the world is, okay, what have I got on my plate? Am I waiting on anything? I've got 20 actions, nothing's overdue. These are the hours I've got. And she goes through, okay, she's got one action here on hold. And right, yeah, she could actually work. Now, Alana could actually come in here and log time. There's about 8 different places you can log time. So she might say, yeah, I did some design work, did 4 hours. And yeah, I'm just going to log that time, track it as I go. So she's done 4 hours, half of the 8. And then we'll sort of see that. She might prefer to go to the whiteboard. So if she prefers a Kanban view, again, exactly the same information. There's that ACE demo implementation, requirements brief, and we can see she's done 4 of the 8 hours. We can see the progress bars halfway through, it's at 50%. She could actually say, yeah, she's now completed the, we'll just call that design again because we're cheating, did another 4 hours, and she might actually, not going to mark it complete, say design completed, customer signed off. So you might want to include this as a timesheet note for whoever's reviewing the timesheets. And I'm just going to hit log time there. If we flip back to the timesheet, we'll see what's actually happened. We might just even do that. And then because we want to leverage Salesforce, Alana's going to actually send a quick message to the project manager. Say, yeah, design completed, customer signed off. So there's no sort of guesswork about what's actually happening. That can be translated back. And then she can just drag that to complete when she's done with it. So fantastic. If we go back to the timesheet, then we'll probably see that time, there we go, that time's been logged. And when she's completed for the week, she could actually just save and submit. If you partially complete and save and submit, like when you've got midweek month ends, you can do that. Automatically, it will just save to the appropriate period. And she might say, oh, she actually had to do a little bit of non-billable work, set up out of office, etc. And if we want to track what that is, we can use a pick list field and call that admin. That's all good. And she can save that, save and submit when she's ready. So no other questions, we'll keep on going. So look, there's multiple ways you can look at this. There's different views, project manager's view, team member's view, and that's reasonably easy to configure. If you need help, our team can certainly help with that. Now, if I go back, let's have a quick look where we're up to. So we've gone through a lot. We've created a project. We've then opportunity to project creation. We've got the action pad, the whiteboard, and the timesheet. Let's go back and do a bit of project deep dive. If I miss something, we can always come back to it. So if I go back to my demo implementation and hit refresh, we'll see, let's see, answered live. Sorry, I'm just making sure got everything covered here in the questions. If there's any more questions, please feel free to jump into the chat or the Q&A window. So here's my project. If I go and have a look at my Gantt chart, this is kind of useful for a lot of projects. People who prefer looking at things in the Gantt chart view, I can see how far through. I can see, yep, we're pretty much done for the week. I can see the progress bar's 1,000. You can choose what fields pop up here. I can see what else is coming up. If I go back to my overview, I can see from the brief milestone that I've had my requirements, and we did 8 of the 8 hours. So there's my estimated hours, my actual. So noting that any field, any metric you enter, you track, can be reported on, put into dashboards. This is rolled up to the milestone level here. And I set that action when I went to the create milestones page to say, auto complete the milestone when all the actions are complete. And then I've also said, generate a billing event. So if I've got access to billing, may not, maybe as a project manager, that goes to someone above my pay grade. But if the demo gods have been kind, it will have created a billing event on completion of the milestone. This is really useful. So your finance people, they're going to love this. Why are they going to love this? Because this is a draft invoice. You could even send this to the customer. It's based on the completion of that milestone. We've already attributed the GST amount, goods and services tax. And going deep under the covers here, yeah, I've set it to come in draft status. Has all the financials information. If that needs to be tweaked, adjusted, anything else, you can work on that. And then after a few minutes, it'll actually generate an invoice PDF. So you could even share the invoice from Mission Control. So a lot of our customers actually generate the invoices straight to the customer from Mission Control. Where that's really useful as a project manager, engagement manager, is the customer calls you about billing or anything, you can actually see what's actually been happening. It's like, oh, we shouldn't be charged GST. Oh, right, that's an error in setup. Let's work on that. If I go to the related list, so these are the objects related to the billing event. We've got a billing event items, and here we can see there's a billing event, and this is where you can use an integration app. So you could have an pre-built integration app from Salesforce App Exchange, or set up an integration to actually push this information straight to your general ledger, to the right GL code. And then when that payment is accepted in the GL, it can actually come back into Mission Control. So let's just see how that could look. I'm just going to call this payment. Don't worry about the typing. It's the full amount and whatever reference code. So this could all be, what's called test. This could all be automated. You wouldn't have to even look at this if you've got integration set up. Now, the value of that is for the project manager. They could be calling finance all the time and say, well, what's happening with my project? And they don't have to anymore. They can go straight to billing and see, okay, this has actually been invoiced and it's actually been paid. How's my project tracking from a progression perspective? Well, I can see I've actually completed this much billable value, and because we charge more than that, we can see our P&L, how that's tracking. So all that information is in one place. The hours you started with, the hours you've used, what's left. So there's no guesswork on what's actually happening. So we've gone through auto completion of the milestone, billing and integration, the Gantt chart, status report. Now let's find one I've done earlier, and there's a couple of other aspects in here. I've got a project here called Ace Roadshow, and the project status reports, one might be a week old or two. Just realized I haven't updated it. And you can automate this status report to go out to clients. You might choose, obviously using your own images, your own graphics. You might just send the summary. Where's the project up to? When's it, when we're likely to complete? Here's a summary of the milestones. Add a project notes field and have a weekly update from the project manager of where things are at. In this project, we've got issues and risks and change requests. So maybe we'll include more detail. I've got the milestone detail on progression and when those are expected to complete. Really useful, stop the customer guessing. Even a snapshot of the Gantt chart, things such as issues that you're working on, risks, and if there are any change requests, things like that, that you can actually cover off. So really, really powerful. So let's go and have a look at this from, no, let's not go that way, from an executive team member view. So we'll look at dashboards and reports to start with. Now, because Mission Control is built natively on Salesforce, as you'd expect, and maybe as you'd hope, those are actually built in Salesforce dashboards and Salesforce reports. So as I mentioned earlier, all the metrics you're tracking are there in the system. So if you want to report on them, if you want to put them up into a dashboard, you've got the capability to do that with standard reports or even more comprehensive reports. So an example, I'm looking at my key projects and what that margin's looking at. I can see we're tracking around very small writing, but we're sort of averaging around the 20% margin, which is not bad for a services company. If I care about when revenue is actually going to drop, when those milestones are happening, forecast revenue, how many hours I got left to deliver, all those sort of metrics that, from a resourcing, from a project, from a costing perspective, can be really, really important. Now, two metrics I mentioned at the outset: cost performance and schedule performance. So let's have a look at this project that we just did the status report for and see what that looks like. So I'm going to run the report just for this project, and I'm going to draw through into the project. And a slightly different structure here. Now, if I go into the insights, what it's giving me is the cost performance index and the schedule performance index. Now, when you start your project, they start on 1. 1 is ideal. 1 means you're on track. If you go above 1, that means you're ahead of schedule or you're ahead of cost. In other words, you're making more margin. I can see straight away from here, and I've got red, amber, green settings that we can see our schedule's not too bad, so it's still green. Our cost performance went from green to amber and it's now in red. And I can have a quick look and see, look, here's my starting hours. I had no billable hours and I've tracked 8 non-billable, and that's probably had a major impact on my margin. So that's something I can deep dive into. As a project manager, maybe I want to track the burn rate. Now, this is an example project, but it's going to show the ideal burn rate. I can see all the hours where I've actually had notes put in there. I can see there were some additional requirements, and it looks like we wrote off 8 hours as non-billable. So that's kind of useful to know information. And again, I haven't left Mission Control. All that information's there. I could take that one step further, deep dive, I realized, and you might have noticed in the status report, we had a change request with status. We got a change request object used to capture the information you need to actually work on that. And we're saying, look, we're going to raise a change request and ask the customer to pay us more money for the extra requirement. So a lot of information in there. So, from a dashboard, you go into those reports, you can drill down to, as deep as you need to. PMO dashboard. Now, with cost performance, what about my key projects? And the PMO dashboard gives you the ability to track cost performance and schedule performance, not just at the project level for my key projects. I'm just listing 3 in my demo org. And I can see, look, there's that roadshow implementation we saw, but I can actually track it right down to the milestone and the action level. So I can start to see where things went awry. Say, okay, we had really bad cost, margin got halved almost, or probably more in our requirements, and I can look at that. So it's a very way to sort of get a granular view without having to go consult finance and those sorts of things. And you might say, well, how does this compare to last period? So I look to last week. This is where we are now. Where were we a week ago? So we were actually ahead on margin this time last week, and we were ahead on schedule. So really need to go and have a look at what's happening with the team. Maybe there's some other problems I really need to look into. Oh, sorry, Kathleen. Yes, this video will be shared with all the participants. I think she actually left, so you should get this. And Brian, is it burn down, which is a view of the performance of tasks? So the burn down that I showed you was on time logs. So based on the hour allocations to the roles, it's burn rate is how we're actually doing on time logs. If you want to report on how you're doing financially, then we could build out a report for that, have that available at the project level. I hope that helps. If not, please feel free to re-clarify the question, not trying to avoid it, obviously. So yeah, PMI dashboard. Also, revenue recognition is built into mission control. So you might say, look, let's have a look at revenue recognition. I don't know if there's going to be much in there. We'll just say from the 1st of July to say 31st, so I don't have too much. And let's have a look at revenue recognition for those weeks for our projects on the PMO dashboard. And this could be actually taken and then extracted out. It's using those core earned value metrics. Obviously not a lot of data in my org, so really only had stuff at the end, being see, the cumulative value and all these other aspects. There's a knowledge base article on this if you'd like to deep dive into how that works. So what else would an executive or someone managing an overview of a business services related business care about? Well, I think the resource plan is one key aspect. And I'm just going to hit refresh here. So I think it hasn't run in a while. So the resource plan, I've got two things I'm looking at. Now I'm including both actions where I've already got projects running, and in blue are my actions where I've allocated roles. I can see I've got holidays booked to those roles as well. And I've also got opportunity forecasts as well, or could any sort of role forecast that the business hasn't been won, but we know it should happen soon. And the red line is going to be the accumulation of my capacity for my team. And then the total hours they're working. I can see, it looks pretty busy for Alana, not so much for Kai, and there's a bit of a balance. Now, if I go to my planner view, I'm looking at that from a weekly view. I could do this every week. I could say, show me the next 5 days of my week. I'm looking at this to the end of September. And I can see Alana, she looks pretty heavily resourced, not so bad this week. So let's make sure I've got this up to date. So here we go. With the ACE demo implementation, we now had 8 hours. There's that holiday she had booked. She had some non-billable time pre-booked in there. And I can see if I scroll down, there's also an opportunity forecast. So see the opportunities at 90%. And come the 11th of September, it's going to get pretty busy for her. So obviously that's going to take it well above her availability. So I might need to either look at giving that resource, that allocation to someone else, or see what I need to sort of balance that out. And as I go into each of these projects, I can drill in to any of these projects and have a look at them if I need to do any rescheduling, that side of things. Other aspect of that is, sorry, Brian, want to be specific on term. Okay, burn down. Okay, burn down rather than burn rate. Thank you for clarifying, Brian. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. I stand corrected. So yeah, the time logs was a burn down rather than a burn rate. You can have burn rate from a reporting perspective. If there's any questions on resource planning, we can certainly come back to it. There's also in our great knowledge base articles on that, which you can access from the Preca website. For scheduling, you could do that within the project, or you could use the resource scheduler. So I'm looking at the resource scheduler everywhere through Mission Controller's filters. I filtered this to my key consultants, and I'm looking at the project level. There's that leaves there. Actually, I should probably hit refresh and give me a chance to have a sip of tea. There we go. And we can see that project that we created is there. And we can see, yep, that's all looking good. Looking a bit busy around the traps. I can see there's some other leaf here. Looks like Joel's actually been scheduled for some work when he's not available. If I go to the action level, I could then look at ways to actually go. There's that requirements meeting. Look, he's got a requirements meeting here. Design wireframes. Yeah, if I wanted to reschedule some of these things, I might say, okay, what does that mean from a heat map perspective? So if I look at the hours total and go, right, not available at all, overburdened, and I can actually start resourcing that. For example, I might sort of drag this work from here off Alana. If I go back to the hours, just see what's the impact of that. Okay, that's freed up some of her time. And then I can go through and work on these other aspects. And when I'm happy with that, hit save. So kind of powerful, very useful. You can, as I said, you can filter it. The figures we're showing on the left, all configurable. The settings all the way through Mission Control. And then the last thing I wanted to cover off is a Gantt chart, but this is what we call Gantt chart anywhere. So this Gantt chart, component. It can be run standalone. It can be under your project. You could add it under the Salesforce account object if you want to give your salespeople visibility into mission control. I've actually filtered my Gantt chart here. I can do it a number of ways. I've just said I want to do it by program and by a program where I've grouped together a number of projects. I want to see how they're running together. Now, I think it's our August release, which is coming out at the end of the month. You should be able to have inter-project dependencies. If not August, it will certainly be there by December. So I can see how we're going through. There's our roadshow implementation. I can see the build, where that's up to. It's very useful. I can also see here, like the Joel, and we've also got Mick Fanning. So there's two people working on that action. And it looks like there might be a challenge if we wanted to move some work to one or both of those. That's blocked out in non-workable time. So very, very powerful. That's pretty much what I wanted to cover off in the session. And look, Brian and Kathleen, thanks for your questions. That's been really useful. Key thing with mission control is don't believe everything we say. Listen to what our customers say. If you go to G2, check the reviews there. The Net Promoter Score ratings are out of this world for mission control, where typically SaaS type companies, software, would average in the 50 to 60 NPS rating. We're rating in the low 80s, so 82, 83 consistently. And the feedback we have from our clients is really, really powerful. So, excuse me, go through those reviews. And look, average time to implement. People say, how long does it take to implement mission control? Well, the great news is it can be super fast if you need it to be. Depending on how comprehensive, when you want to phase your implementation, and certainly, we're there to support you. So certainly getting involved with us, we can sit down and go through, someone like myself, and go through and find out, look, is mission control a fit for your business? Let's go and help you do an evaluation. You can download from Salesforce App Exchange, have a sample project call to help with any trial information. Once you sign up with Mission Control, you go through an onboarding plan with our customer success team and give you all the information you need. If you want to self-implement, we have a professional service team we could implement. We've got a number of Salesforce implementation partners who also implement Mission Control, and ongoing support. We're recording monthly, what we call Cosmo Campfire webinars every month on specific features, and there's a lot of great information there. And have a look what our customers say. So basically on our website, Brown's one of my favorite customers. I grew up in New Zealand and they're headquartered very close to where I grew up. I have visited them a couple of times. And in the first year they were using Mission Control, they had 50 project managers, and through centralize everything into Salesforce and Mission Control, they were saving 4 days per project manager. And then the following year, they were recording and telling us they're getting a 30% increase in efficiency with no extra spending, just using Mission Control. Looking at Fortune 100 type companies, Cardinal Health were looking at building their own solution, and they thought they'd evaluate, and then they found Mission Control. You can do that too. That business impact report, you can download ebooks, the brochure, that's all available on our website. And you can go to Salesforce App Exchange right now, and you can take a test drive. So if you're on App Exchange, there's a little test drive icon there. You can test drive an online Mission Control account, and you could click get it now, and you can get that into your own org, and we'll support you even before you're a customer. You want to use support, raise tickets and live chat, you can actually do that. Thank you all so much for your time. There will be a recording done with this. Sorry, question or statement from Brian. Videos support, nobody seems to want to do phases. I think that's coming in our August release, Brian, that phases should be available all through the projects. Happy to follow that up with you directly. Oh yeah, scheduled to release first week of September. Phases will be an optional item, so you don't need to have phases. They're for the customers who actually want to have an extra piece of structure, because often we have customers that say, look, I need more than 3 levels under a project. Thank you everyone for your time. Really appreciate you staying online for all this, and any questions, happy to take direct follow-ups or follow with the team, and happy to set up a call. Thank you again for your time, and hope to talk to you soon.